The atmosphere was quiet, not empty, but full of something deeper: reflection, gratitude, and a sense that this was not just a goodbye, but a celebration of a life that had already touched millions. As details of the funeral and Homegoing service for Marilyn Hickey began to emerge, it became clear that this moment would reflect exactly how she lived: faith-filled, dignified, and centered on purpose. Because this wasn't just a funeral. It was a Homegoing. Marilyn Hickey passed away peacefully at the age of 95 after a natural decline in health. According to those close to her, her final days were calm and spiritually grounded, surrounded by family members who described the moment not as an end, but as a transition. And that perspective shaped everything that followed. The Homegoing service, held in a private yet deeply meaningful setting, brought together close family, ministry members, and longtime friends who had walked alongside her throughout decades of faith-based work. It was not designed as a grand public event, but rather as an intimate gathering that honored both her public legacy and her personal life. And that balance is what made it so powerful. But that's not the whole story. From the very beginning of the service, there was a clear tone. This was not a moment defined by sorrow alone. Instead, it was framed as a celebration of a journey completed. Soft worship music filled the space as attendees gathered, creating an atmosphere that felt more like reflection than mourning. At the center of the service was her daughter, Sarah Bowling, who delivered one of the most emotional tributes of the day. Her words were not just about loss. They were about legacy, faith, and the quiet strength her mother carried through every stage of life. She spoke about the final days they shared, about conversations filled with peace, about a sense of readiness that replaced fear. And those reflections resonated deeply with everyone present, because they revealed something personal behind the public figure. Sarah described her mother as someone who never separated her belief from her daily life. The same message she preached on stage was the one she lived at home, and in her final days, that consistency never changed. There were no dramatic final speeches, no grand declarations, just calm, steady faith. And that, according to her family, was the most powerful message of all. As the service continued, selected readings and prayers highlighted key moments from Marilyn Hickey's life: her early ministry work, her global outreach, and the countless lives she impacted through teaching and encouragement. But what stood out most was not the scale of her achievements. It was the sincerity behind them. Because every story shared pointed back to one thing: her commitment to helping others find hope. And that theme carried through the entire service. Music also played a central role in the Homegoing. Hymns that she loved were performed softly, allowing attendees to reflect rather than simply observe. The songs were not chosen for performance value, but for meaning. Each one representing a part of her journey. Each one connecting the past to the present moment. But here, where the atmosphere shifted even more. As the service moved toward its closing moments, there was a noticeable sense of peace in the room. Not the absence of grief, but the presence of understanding. Attendees were not just saying goodbye. They were acknowledging a life that had reached its intended purpose. And that realization brought a different kind of emotion. Not just sadness, but gratitude. Following the service, a private burial took place, attended only by immediate family members. The location has been kept confidential out of respect for the family's wishes, reflecting the same quiet dignity that defined Marilyn Hickey's personal life. There were no large public viewings, no extended ceremonies, just a simple, respectful farewell. And for many, that simplicity felt appropriate. Because while her public life was expansive, her personal values remained grounded in humility and faith. As news of her Homegoing spread, tributes began pouring in from around the world. Followers, ministry partners, and individuals who had been impacted by her teachings shared messages of remembrance, often highlighting how her words had guided them through difficult moments. Some spoke about finding strength through her sermons, others about discovering faith for the first time, and many simply expressed gratitude, because for them, this was not just the loss of a public figure. It was the loss of a voice that had been present in their lives for years. Meanwhile, Sarah Bowling's tribute continues to resonate beyond the service itself. Her message, that her mother finished well, has become a central theme in how people are remembering Marilyn Hickey. Not just for what she did, but for how she lived. With purpose, with consistency, and with peace. As the final moments of the Homegoing service faded into quiet reflection, one thing became clear. This was not a goodbye filled with unanswered questions. It was a farewell grounded in certainty. A life lived fully, a message carried forward, and a legacy that continues even in absence. Because for those who believe in the meaning behind a Homegoing, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something eternal.